Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Surah Ghashiyah. Central theme and relationship with the preceding surah. This surah forms a pair with Surah Ala, the previous surah. There is no essential difference between the central themes of both surahs. Just as the previous surah sounds assurance to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this surah too sounds assurance to him. However, there is a difference between the two as regards their style of address, methodology of reasoning, and their brief or comprehensive treatment of motives. Initially depicted in this surah is the difference in fate which the good and the wicked will meet in the hereafter, and it is proven that this fate is an obvious outcome of the attributes of power, providence, and mercy of the Creator of this universe. At the end, the motive, remind them if reminding them is beneficial, briefly referred to in the previous surah, is explained. The responsibility of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is only to communicate the truth. It is not his responsibility to force others to accept it. He is told not to go after the stubborn and the obdurate. He should leave their matter to God, who is enough to deal with them. Analysis of the Discourse, Section 1, verses 1 to 6. A mention of the fate to be encountered by people who live in this world in complete disregard to the next world. Section 2, verses 7 to 16. A portrayal of the success and triumph of people who live in this world while fearing the next. Section 3, verses 17 to 20. A reference to certain prominent signs of the world which show that the Creator of this universe has great power and wisdom. He is very compassionate and is very gracious and affable to his creatures. It is the obvious outcome of his attributes of power, mercy, wisdom, and providence that he one day bring about a day of justice in which he rewards the pious and punishes the wicked. If this world continues without the advent of such a day, then this will negate all these attributes of God. In fact, it will, God forbid, prove that he has made this world to be a place which is not governed by moral laws and that good and evil are equal in his eyes. Section 4, verses 21 to 26. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is assured that what he is warning people of is an obvious reality. Signs which point to it are very manifest. He should not despair and lose hope of the attitude of the stubborn. His responsibility is to only communicate the truth. The Almighty will not hold him accountable if people accept or reject it. He should submit the matter of those who are not willing to listen to him to God. They will one day have to return to God, and he will definitely call them to account. Text of the surah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Hal ataka hadithul ghashiyah. Wujuhun yawma idhin khashi'ah. 'Amilatun nasibah. تصلى نارا حامية تسقى من عين آنية ليس لهم طعام إلا من ضريع لا يسمن ولا يغني من جوع وجوه يومئذ ناعمة لسعيها راضية في جنة عالية لا تسمع فيها لاغية فيها عين جارية فيها سرر مرفوعة وأكواب موضوعة ونمارق مصفوفة وزرابي مبثوثة أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت وإلى السماء كيف رفعت وإلى الجبال كيف نصبت وإلى الأرض كيف سطحت فذكر إنما أنت مذكر لست عليهم بمسيطر إلا من تولى وكفر فيعذبه الله العذاب الأكبر إن إلينا إيابهم ثم إن علينا حسابهم.
Translation of the Surah. In the name of God, the most gracious, the ever merciful. Has the news of the all-engulfing calamity reached you? Many faces on that day will be downcast and worn out. They will enter the blazing fire. They will be made to drink from a sizzling spring. Their only food will be thorny bushes, which will neither fatten them nor satisfy their hunger. Many faces on that day will be fresh, pleased with their endeavors, in a lofty garden where they will hear no useless talk. In it there will be a running spring. In it there will be thrones set high, and goblets well arranged, and carpets well set out, and cushions spread all over. Do they not see the camels, how they have been made? And do they not behold the sky, how it has been raised high? And do they not look at the mountains, how they have been set aloft? And do they not see the earth, how it has been spread out? Just remind them, for your duty is only to remind them. You are not to force them. As for he who turns away and denies, God will punish him gravely. Indeed, to us will they return. Then it is upon us to call them to account. Explanation of the Surah. Hal ataka hadithul ghashiyah. Has the news of the all-engulfing calamity reached you? Questions expressed in such style are not meant to elicit an answer. They are meant to express the horror or majesty of something. The address in the verse can also be considered as general. However, intrinsic evidence shows that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is addressed. Consequently, giving due regard to this aspect, the words at the end of the surah are فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُذَكِّرْ, or just remind them, for your duty is only to remind them. The word Ghashiyah means something which engulfs and enshrouds. Here in this verse, it is used as an attribute for the Day of Judgment. The reason for this is that the calamity of this day would be all-embracing. No one will be able to escape from it. Though the news hadith of this calamity is described to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, however, the purpose, as will be evident from subsequent verses, is to inform the disbelievers who in the first place did not even believe in the hereafter, and if for some reason they did, they had no fear of it, because they thought that they would be blessed with even more than what they have been given in this world. وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ خَاشِعَةٌ عَامِلَةٌ نَاصِبَةٌ. Many faces on that day will be downcast and worn out. As pointed out earlier, the question mentioned in the previous verse was not meant to elicit an answer. It was only meant to warn people that they should clearly hear what is being sounded to them. After this, the Qur'an has itself replied that many faces on that day will be downcast and worn out. The word khashiyah means downcast and turned downwards, while amila means tired because of hard work, and nasiba means worn out. The implication is that when against their hope they would have to face hell because of their misdeeds, they would become pale with fear. Although the word wujuh or faces is used to imply people, the word wujuhun is used to refer to their inner state because it is the face which is the most expressive of one's inner state. Tasla naran hamiya tusqa min aynin aniya. They will enter the blazing fire. They will be made to drink from a sizzling spring. The verses mention the cause of the anxiety and apprehension mentioned in the previous verses. The word anya means something which is boiling and seething. It is evident from other places of the Qur'an that the anxiety of the sinners mentioned in this verse relates to the time when it becomes certain to them that they would be thrown into hell. The Qur'an states, وَجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ بَاسِرَةٌ تَظُنُّ أَن يُفْعَلَ بِهَا فَاقِرَةٌ. And some faces will be gloomy on that day, apprehending that there is going to befall them that which breaks their backs. Surah number 75, verses 24 and 25. Generally, people have understood that this state of the sinners is the one which will result after they have been cast into hell. However, this is not true. Once these sinners are cast into hell, their faces will not merely be anxious. They will be dragged on the fire, and whatever else will happen to them is mentioned elsewhere in the Qur'an. لَيْسَ لَهُمْ طَعَامٌ إِلَّا مِنْ ذَرِيعٍ لَا يُسْمِنُ وَلَا يُغْنِي مِنْ جُوعٍ. Their only food will be thorny bushes, which will neither fatten them nor satisfy their hunger. After food, this is a mention of the water which will be given to the sinners in hell. Zari' is a thorny and poisonous bush which no animal touches. The purpose of the sentence is not to say that they will not be fed with anything else except thorny bushes. The word illa is used here as a severed exception or istisna munqati. To convey the above meaning, zari should have belonged to the same genre of edibles in any way. When this is not so, the exception is only meant to convey the fact that when they would find nothing to eat, they will out of frustration try to eat the thorny bushes available to them there. This negation also does not refute the fact that other similar things would be present for the dwellers of hell and which they would be compelled to eat. Thus it is mentioned in another verse that these sinners will have to consume zaqqum. The words are, Inna shajarat zaqqum ta'amul athim. Indeed, the bush of zaqqum shall be the food of sinners. Surah number 44, verses 43 and 44. Similarly, another verse mentions ghislin. وَلَا تَعَامٌ إِلَّا مِنْ غِسْلِينَ لَا يَأْكُلُهُ إِلَّا الْخَاطِئُونَ. And their food shall be the fluid in which wounds are washed. Only the sinners will eat it. Surah number 69, verses 36 and 37. It is evident from this that the dwellers of hell shall not be given any food. They shall be given just those things which are not only not edibles, but also those which can be swallowed by none except the dwellers of hell. Consider now the next verse, La yusminu wa la yughni min ju'. The uses of food are two, to provide energy to the body and to satisfy the pangs of hunger. However, what will be served to the dwellers of paradise will fulfill neither of these uses. They will have to go through the agony of only chewing and swallowing it. وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَعِمَةٌ لِسَعْيِهَا رَاضِيَةٌ فِي جَنَّةٍ عَالِيَةٍ. Many faces on that day will be fresh, pleased with their endeavors in a lofty garden. In these verses, the state of the believers is described. In Surah Qiyamah, this state is described in the following words. وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. Some faces will be joyous on that day, awaiting the graciousness of their Lord. Surah number 75, verses 23 and 24. The previous verses mention the dejectedness, fatigue, and frustration of the rejectors of the day of judgment. These verses, in contrast, mention the believers who spent their life for the hereafter and succeeded in their test. Their faces will reflect the glow and radiance of eternal triumph. The expression لِسَعْيِهَا رَاضِيَةٌ shows that their faces will glow and sparkle because the fruits of their labor will be before them. They toiled in the previous world to harvest these results. They will be fully satisfied with this outcome, that they were generally rewarded for their deeds, and the Almighty fulfilled all His promises He made with them. Details are forthcoming in the subsequent verses, and the next surah also mentions a specific aspect in this regard. God willing, I will attempt to unfold some of its subtle implications. The verse Fi Jannatin Aliyah describes their abode in the hereafter. They will be lodged in gardens situated on high ground. Arabs cherished gardens which were situated in lofty places and which were encircled by tall date palms so that they appear elegant from far off and are also protected from calamities such as scorching winds and floods.